I always believed brakes were invented for cowards. Until I saw death in my rearview mirror. Death looked like a pair of headlights stacked too close. Teeth of white light chewing up the night. The city stretched ahead in a wet ribbon. Rain-slick concrete, neon bleeding into puddles. Steam lifting from manhole covers like ghosts with nowhere better to be. My engine howled, a furious animal under the hood. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mouth was doing what it always did when the world tried to scare me. "Come on, sweetheart," I told the car. "We're not dying pretty." The checkpoint cones were a hallucination of orange, and the crowd was a living wall. Jackets, phones, cigarettes, eyes. Their voices braided into one sound. My name. Jax. Jax. A rhythm, a promise. A dare. It shivered along my spine and hooked into my ribs. The smell of gasoline and hot rubber lived in the back of my throat like an old sin. I clipped the apex so tight my side mirror almost shaved paint off the barrier. Behind me, another car, fishtailed, corrected, came for my bumper like a hungry dog. The bridge ahead was a black jaw with steel teeth. Wind slapped my face through the open window, cold and filthy and honest. The light turned yellow. Yellow is just afraid of red. I punched it. The cross-traffic burst into the intersection, and missed me by the mercy of a breath. Horns, curses, the metallic sting of fear. My rear view caught two cars trying to follow me through the gap, and almost performing a duet with a city bus. Almost. My laughter surprised me. Not because it came, but because it sounded alive. The finish line was nothing more than a roped-off stretch of industrial road, where the asphalt buckled like a scar. A crooked banner, a swarm of bodies, detonations of flashlights. I drifted in, back end sliding, tires screaming until they found their voice again and bit. The checkered flag stuttered in someone's grip, and then there was heat, hands, slaps on the roof, fists on the windows. The car ticked as it cooled, the steel exhaling. I killed the engine. Silence showed up late and barefoot. When I stepped out, sound detonated. People pressed close, neon bruises across their faces, smoke threading between us like a lazy serpent. Someone shoved a wad of cash at me. Someone else shoved a microphone. I smiled with my teeth and let both slide by. Madmen. A kid yelled like it was a sacrament. "You almost bought it on 9th. Almost is a story," I said, but my heart was still thundering against my sternum like it wanted out. Almost had a weight to it tonight. Almost had headlights and a taste of cold iron. Jax. My crew chief Leo shouldered through the throng and hooked an arm around my neck. He smelled like motor oil and stale coffee, and the kind of worry people hide by talking too loud. "You insane or just allergic to living past 30? 30 was never my brand," I said. "How's she look?" He crouched, ran a hand over the front splitter like he was checking for a fever. "Hot, but not broken. Unlike my nerves." A ripple went through the crowd, one of those silent things everyone feels before they know why. Heads turned toward the far edge of the lot where the shadows were thicker, cleaner, as if they'd been ironed. A line of black cars sat there, tinted glass absorbing the neon and giving nothing back. My skin tightened the way it does when the air pressure drops before a storm. "Don't look," Leo said, which of course meant look. "Not tonight." "Who?" I asked, already knowing. The way a dog knows thunder by the taste of copper in its mouth. Leo didn't answer, which was an answer. He just wiped his palms on his jeans and managed a smile that didn't climb into his eyes. "Better not go where the smoke smells like sulfur." I snorted. "What, we switching to fairy tales now? You want me to check under the car for monsters too?" "Monsters don't hide under cars," he said. "They own the road." I followed the current of attention to a figure that wasn't trying to be seen and had therefore made seeing him the only thing anyone could do. He leaned against the hood of one of those black cars, his posture unbothered, his suit the kind of dark that eats light. Even from this distance something about him made my pulse stutter. Not fear exactly, not admiration either. Recognition maybe, the way you recognize a cliff edge in fog. His gaze skimmed the crowd like a hand over piano keys, and the noise dipped. Not out of respect, but because sound didn't want to be obvious around him. A rumor slid through the people closest to me, moth-soft wings brushing my ear. "He's here," he noticed. "Orien. Urban legend," I said, mostly to myself. "Sure," Leo murmured. "And your car runs on wishes." Somewhere a bottle shattered, a woman laughed too close to tears, a lighter flared and died. The night is a collector. It pockets everything and sells it back at a markup. I let the crowd press us toward the side street where our van waited with tools and a spare set of tires we hadn't needed. The wet concrete reflected us upside down, strangers under our feet. "You pulled a ghost pass on 9th, Leo said, finally letting the shake in his hands show. "The bus." Jax, if that driver had blinked. "If he had blinked, I would have closed my eyes and believed harder," I said. "Sarcasm is not a shield, it's a mirror. We won. That's the part where you say, 'Good job,' and hand me something that isn't an accusation." He did hand me something, water, the cap already off. The first swallow stung like the truth. The second went down like forgiveness. Leo watched me as if the words he wanted to say were illegal in 3 states. "Listen," he said, low. "You're good. You know you're good, but there's a line, you crossed it tonight." I twisted the bottle, watched the plastic catch the neon. "Lines are just suggestions. Not this one." He leaned in, voice dropping to the space only friends can enter. "You're on his radar." "That's not a win, Jax, that's a target." I felt it then, under the adrenaline, under the swagger. A thin wire of something like fear strung along my spine and humming. The crowd's energy tanged on my tongue, an electric sour. I've always loved the roar, the way strangers gift you their pulse for a few minutes. But tonight, somewhere beneath the chorus of my name, there was a different sound. Not louder, just truer. A woman with glitter on her cheeks stumbled up and thrust her phone in my face. "Say something for the stream." I looked into the little glass eye and smiled. "Drive fast, don't die. Tip your mechanics." The comments exploded in a waterfall of emojis and caps. The phone disappeared, replaced by a hand that wanted to touch me, then another, and another. Fame is hungry and has too many fingers. I let Leo yank me out of the grasp and into the thin corridor of privacy between 2 stacks of pallets. "Jax," he said, blocking the exit with his body because he knew I'd try to step past any door labeled "Do Not Enter." "I'm serious. There are rules down here. He writes them. You break them, he breaks you." I laughed. And it sounded wrong even to me. "You talk like you've met him." "I talk like I've lost people who thought they were faster than the dark," he said, and there was something in his eyes then that made me stop arguing. "Promise me you won't go knocking." "Knocking where?" I said. "On iron shadows?" "Promise," he insisted. "There are promises you can make because you know you'll keep them. There are promises you make because someone you love needs the shape of the word, even if it's made of smoke." I opened my mouth to say something easy, something warm. A voice slid into the space like a blade into velvet. "Congratulations, Jax." We both turned. He wasn't there a second ago. He was there now. Close enough for me to see the ripple of neon caught in the black of his eyes. His suit looked like it had been poured onto him and had chosen to stay. He smelled faintly of rain that never touched the ground. "Big night," he said. And his smile was the kind that doesn't show teeth and still feels like one. "Do you always make a habit of arguing with survival?" My mouth worked. Words arrived late and smug. "Only when survival starts the fight." Leo made a small sound I'd never heard from him before. A sound like a bolt stripped of its threads. "We were just leaving," he said. "I know," the man said. The laugh that followed was not mean. It just knew where everything lived. "I'm Orien." He didn't offer a hand. He didn't need to. His name did what hands do. Gripped, measured, released you a little changed. The rumor wasn't a rumor. The legend had a voice. The line I'd crossed turned out to be a door. "Cool," I said, because when faced with a cliff, you either jump or you make jokes. "Do you send out welcome baskets or just come steal people's hubcaps?" "Welcome baskets are for clubs," he said lightly. "This is a city, and cities run on rules." "Rules are for breaks," I said, hearing my own opening line echo back, realizing he'd pulled it out of me without asking. "We both know how I feel about those." "Do we?" His gaze drifted to my car, to the streaks of road salt and victory drying on her skin. "You drove like you were tired of living, and too stubborn to stop." "That's one way to say fearless," I said. "It's one way," he agreed. Then, to Leo almost kindly, "You can go. I'm not here for him." Leo didn't move, but his eyes met mine, and there was a conversation there. He was telling me a story without words, the ones he'd lost, the nights he didn't sleep, the sulfur in the smoke. I nodded, a small nod. The kind that says not okay but okay enough. "I'll get the van," he said, backing away like the air was glass and he didn't want to smudge it. 2 minutes. We were alone. The crowd's roar was back behind a wall. My pulse recounted the race, each beat a corner I'd taken on faith. So, I said. What does the man who writes the rules want with a guy who uses them for kindling? Orien's smile tilted, almost curious, like a cat noticing a laser pointer. To see if you're fast, he said. Fast enough to learn the difference between a finish line and a cliff. And if I don't want lessons? Then don't show up where they're taught, he said, as if I hadn't already walked into school on my first day, as if the chalk wasn't already on my hands. He tipped his head toward the black cars. Enjoy your win. He turned away. The shadows took him back the way water takes a stone. The breath I'd been pretending not to hold left my chest like an apology. Leo's van coughed to life. The crowd surged, curious, hungry, always hungry. I looked at the road we'd carved out of the night and felt the faintest shift under my feet, like the city had leaned closer to hear what I'd say next. I've always believed brakes were for cowards. But even cowards know when something bigger than speed starts running beside them. And I had the sudden burning sense that whatever Orien was, legend, monster, king of the iron shadows, he'd just looked into my rearview and decided I wasn't a car to pass. I was a direction. The invitation wasn't written. It was painted, burned, and branded into my night. A card had been left on my windshield after the race, tucked beneath, the wiper like a love note from someone who didn't believe in flowers. No words. Just an image, a wheel on fire, its spokes bending into the shape of claws. Leo swore when he saw it. That's not a souvenir, Jax. That's a summons. I twirled the card between my fingers. It was heavier than paper, hotter too, like it had spent the evening pressed against an engine block. Funny. I didn't please reply. He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting to the shadows. Don't joke. If he calls, you go. If you don't, he'll come find you. Then maybe I'll leave him a card, I said, sliding it into my pocket. But something about the weight of it made me feel already claimed. The warehouse by the docks smelled of rust and seawater, like the ocean was rotting one rib at a time. Corrugated steel walls sweated salt. Windows had been blacked out. On the biggest sliding door, painted bold enough to catch even in the dim lamplight, was that same sigil, the burning wheel. I parked outside, the hum of my engine sounding like a prayer in enemy territory. When the motor cut, silence swelled in, thick and deliberate. The door opened without my touch. Inside, the light came from a single lamp hanging low over a table. The rest of the room was shadow. A row of cars gleamed half seen at the far edge, their paint absorbing what little glow there was. The air carried the tang of gasoline but sharper, laced with something I couldn't name, ozone maybe, or the promise of velocity itself. He stood near the table as if the lamp had been designed to crown him. Tall. Too tall, but balanced like a blade. His suit was black enough to insult the dark. He turned when I stepped in, and for a heartbeat I forgot that air was supposed to go in and out of lungs without effort. Jax, he said. My name resonant, almost mechanical, the voice of an engine revving in a deep garage. That's me, I answered, cocky enough to cover the pulse in my throat. Guess that makes you the welcoming committee? He smiled without warmth. His eyes caught the light differently than they should have. Just a thread of glow, faint, but enough to make me want to look away. I didn't. You entered my track last night. His tone wasn't accusation, it was fact written in stone. You drove it like you owned it. I shrugged. Territory's just where your wheels leave marks. I left a few. You noticed? For a moment, silence hung like the drop before a roller coaster. Then he stepped closer, and I swore the air moved with him, folding in, like the city itself leaned to make room. You're bold, he said. And reckless. Both are currency here. But they're not infinite. Neither am I shot back. That's the fun. The lamp flickered once, as if it had flinched. He didn't. My name is Orien, he said. No last name. No need. The syllables felt like they had weight. Like the burning wheel itself. I run the races. I run the roads. I run what no human hand can grasp. You crossed into my dominion. Congratulations, I said. You've got dominion over asphalt. Want me to kneel or just pay rent? His smile sharpened, less human now. Neither. I want you to understand. Drive for me, by my rules, and you'll live to enjoy the applause. Keep pretending you answer to no one, and the road will eat you. I folded my arms, fighting the instinct to back away. The glow in his eyes pulsed like embers breathing. Something in my chest twisted, half fear, half the raw thrill that came every time I took a corner too fast. Rules, I said. I don't break for those. For the first time he laughed, a low rumble, like tires on a steel bridge. You really believe that, don't you? I don't just believe it, I said, feeling my grin stretch sharp. I drive it. The space between us tightened. I could feel it, that dangerous pull, like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to jump, not because you want to die, but because you want to know how it feels to fall. His presence was terrifying, magnetic, and I hated how my pulse leaned toward him instead of away. You're fast, Orien said softly, but speed without direction is just a spin-out. And direction without speed? I countered. He tilted his head, and for a second the glow in his eyes flared. A cage. The words landed heavy. Somewhere deep inside something whispered that I'd just been measured and filed. I swallowed, keeping my smirk. Then I guess we're both in trouble. His smile returned, faint but certain, like a man who'd just placed a bet he knew he'd win. We'll see. He stepped back into the shadows. They closed around him, swallowed the edges of his suit, dimmed the glow of his eyes until the lamp over the table looked too small. The burning wheel sigil glared at me from the door when I turned to leave. For the first time I wondered if I was already marked. Not by victory, not by luck, but by him. And damned if some part of me didn't like the thought. The garage was supposed to be my sanctuary. Oil on the floor, the sweet bite of gasoline in the air, sockets lined. Up in military rows, posters of cars I'd never owned curling at the edges. My whole life fit inside those 4 concrete walls, noisy and imperfect but mine. Except lately, things weren't adding up. A wrench gone missing, replaced with one stripped bare. A timing belt I swore was new suddenly fraying like it had spent years in the sun. Little things that a stranger wouldn't notice but that felt like scratches on my own skin. Probably just me being careless, I told myself. But the words felt flimsy. I didn't do careless, not with machines. With people, sure. With money, often. But not with cars. Leo was bent over the workbench, the glow of the hanging lamp cutting sharp across his face. His jaw was tight, the way it got when he was hiding something. You ever misplace tools, Leo? I asked casually, running a rag across my hands though they were already clean. Everybody does, he muttered without looking at me. Not me. He froze for a fraction of a second, small, but I caught it. My stomach tightened, a wrench turning where it didn't belong. I stepped closer. You've been here late a lot lately. Someone's got to keep this place running when you're out chasing ghosts, he snapped, too quick. I stared at him, trying to see the friend I'd trusted since I was 16. The guy who taught me how to change out a clutch, who'd stolen beers with me from the corner store. But all I saw was the way his shoulders hunched, like someone carrying a secret too heavy to put down. The night split open before I could press further. A roar, then a flash, metal shrieking, fire blooming. The car I'd been building for the next race coughed flames through its hood, the kind of cough that ends in death. Jax, get down. Leo shouted, but his voice cracked wrong. Not warning. Guilt. The explosion swallowed the room. Heat slammed my chest, flung me back. Sparks cascaded like fireworks gone feral, igniting posters, catching on the rag in my hand. The photo of me and Leo with our first junker, a beat-up Civic we swore was untouchable, curled in the fire, faces melting first. Smoke filled my lungs, sharp and metallic. My sanctuary became a coffin of orange light and howling steel. Through the blur, I saw him, Orien. He wasn't running or shouting. He stood in the doorway framed by flames, calm as a man waiting for a train. The fire bent around him like it didn't dare touch. His eyes glowed brighter here, twin embers drinking in the chaos. You again, I coughed, choking on ash. He tilted his head, amused. You mortals do love setting yourselves on fire. The roof groaned above me, metal straining against heat. I stumbled, but a hand caught my arm, cold where everything else burned. He pulled me upright with impossible strength. Car's done, he said dryly, as if announcing the weather. I glared at him, smoke stinging my eyes. That car was... My voice broke. I wanted to say everything. My shot. My blood. My proof. Instead the words drowned. He studied my face like he was cataloging grief. Then with a smirk, didn't think mortals got so attached to metal and bolts. His calm made me want to punch him, but his grip on my arm was the only anchor in the inferno. We staggered out together, past the collapsing doorframe, into the night. The cool air hit me like a slap. Behind us the garage spat fire into the sky, each burst another piece of my life unraveling. Leo followed last, soot streaking his face, eyes wide. Too wide. You knew, I rasped, the truth clawing out. You sold me out. He tried to shake his head, but guilt leaked from every pore. I didn't, Jax, I had no choice. They paid. I didn't hear the rest. Rage drowned it, thunder in my ears. My fists clenched, nails biting my palms. Betrayal wasn't a knife, it was a hammer, crushing bone and trust together. Later, Orien murmured near me, voice low, vibrating like a hidden engine. His hand left my arm only when he was certain I wouldn't fall. You can deal with your traitor later. Right now you breathe. I turned toward him, flames painting his sharp profile in hellish gold. He looked like he belonged to the fire, not apart from it. Yet he was the only reason I was still alive. You didn't have to save me, I said. His smile was thin, dangerous. Didn't I? You make the races more interesting. The garage caved in on itself, sparks screaming upward. My car, my future, vanished into ash. I should have collapsed with it. Instead, I stood there, lungs burning, fists shaking, staring at the demon who had saved me, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if I hated him for it, or if some part of me had been waiting for him all along. The hangar squatted at the edge of the docks like a sleeping animal, rusted ribs, corrugated skin, a mouth of shadow. You could hear it before you saw it, the bass of engines idling, the insect hiss of whispered bets, a low human hum tuned to greed. When I stepped inside, the air changed temperature. Cigars and cold metal, money and menace. Cars with tinted windows lined the walls, glossy and blank as sealed eyes. They'd called it a meeting. That word always sounds polite before the trap shuts. Rafe the starter met us with a smile I didn't trust. He'd been around since I was just another kid with a stolen socket set. And his job was simple. Wave flags, collect cash, keep the peace. Tonight he wore a suit that didn't fit and a look that did, harried. Calculating, like a man who knew which way the floor would open. Jax, he said, giving my name a pat down. Rough night, I heard. Garage fires are very in this season, I said. You look prosperous. His eyes flicked to Orien standing at my shoulder, as composed as a statue and twice as unsettling. You brought the boss. I don't work for him, I said. Orien didn't correct me. He didn't need to. The room corrected itself. Whenever he moved, space edited to accommodate him. The crowd's noise sloped, pooling in corners, avoiding him like a current avoids a rock. Rafe gestured us inward. The hangar's center was an empty square where cars sometimes performed donuts for giddy mobs. Tonight it was bare concrete under a cage of light. Men ringed it. Jackets cut the same. Watches that could buy neighborhoods, faces that had forgotten softness. Chains hung from a rack by the wall beside aluminum bats and something uglier, the certainty of what came next. A man stepped into the square, expensive and quiet. He didn't introduce himself, which is how you know someone's used to getting his way. We'll keep this short, he said. His voice had the smoothness you get from laying roads over graves. Orien runs races. Jax drives them. The city is a pie, and too many hands make a mess. I'm partial to crumbs, I said. Crumbs are for dogs, he said, eyes flicking to me only to dismiss. The families feel you've both forgotten your place. Rafe shifted. His smile curdled. I looked at him and understood. He wasn't the host. He was the usher. He'd sold tickets and us with them. You sold us, I said flatly. Rafe lifted his hands, pleading and profit in the same gesture. Pressure, kid. Things you don't understand. I understand fires, I said. I understand traps. Orien stepped forward half a pace. The temperature dipped. You understand nothing important, he told the expensive man. Which is speed. Which is the way a crowd inhales right before a crash. Which is who really owns your nights. And yet, the man said, almost bored, here you are. Surrounded. He tipped his chin, and bodies peeled from the walls, 6, then 12, then more. Chains uncoiled like snakes waking. Bats lifted, boots spread. The circle tightened with the soft pleasure of a noose finding its mark. Last chance, the man offered. You both work for us, our rules, our cut. We sell the drama, you make it. Hard pass, I said. His gaze slid to Orien. That was the mistake. Orien smiled. It wasn't nice. You sell drama, he murmured. But you have never met velocity. The first chain swung. Instinct threw me sideways. It cracked the air where my head had been. and snapped against concrete. Sparks leaping. The circle erupted, boots thundered, metal sang, shadows lunged. I grabbed the first thing my hand found, a discarded length of rebar, cool and hopeful. A bat whistled and I ducked. The wind lifted my hair, my laugh, my temper. Two men closed in from the left. I drove the rebar into one's ribs and felt the thud all the way up my arm. He folded with a gasp that felt like a win. And then the world stretched. Not time slowing exactly. More like everything else obeyed a speed limit, and one person didn't. Orien moved. Not fast like a runner, not quick like a knife. He moved with inevitability, as if each place he arrived had been patiently waiting to meet him since the beginning. A chain wrapped his wrist, light bled under his skin, a pale ignition, and it slid off him like poor decisions. A bat came down, his hand intercepted it, not striking, simply being where it had to be. His eyes, God, his eyes, burned like they'd caught the reflection of every finish line, and kept it. Men swore. I did too, because truth sometimes needs a curse to carry it. Right, I panted between swings, of course. A demon. And here I thought you just pounded too many energy drinks. He flashed me a look mid-stride, amused, gentle, infuriating. Careful, he said, voice perfectly calm while his body drew geometry the rest of us couldn't solve. Sarcasm is slippery footing. Someone grabbed the back of my jacket. I wrenched free, drove my shoulder into the soft above a hip. The man wheezed, dropped his chain. I took it, felt its weight, the honesty of links. Another came, big and fast, bat raised. I let him come, sidestep, chain around the wrist, yank. The bat clanged across the floor and sang to the lights. He reached for my throat. I brought my forehead to his nose and learned we were both stubborn. He bled. I saw stars. Fair trade. Across the square, Orien blurred and resolved, blurred and resolved. He didn't so much hit as arrive, elbow, heel, palm, each one irresistible as gravity. Where skin showed at his cuffs, at his throat, light pulsed, not hot, not cold. A thing without temperature, like speed itself had decided to wear him. The expensive man's composure cracked. Shoot them, he snapped to someone behind him. Guns are rude. The hanger knew it. The crowd's roar turned sharp as a scream held behind teeth. I threw myself toward the nearest car as two pistols flashed. Bullets took bites from the fender and chewed sparks off concrete. Orien was in front of me without crossing the space between, just there, his hand up, and the bullets disturbed the air like pebbles tossed into a river that had already chosen its direction. Behind, I warned uselessly. I know, he said, and he did. Something about being near him made my thoughts feel tuned, like a misfiring engine finding its rhythm. He stepped into the gunman's reach, days folding into a second, twisted the weapon aside and pressed two fingers under the man's jaw. The gun dropped. The man followed, asleep or remembering how. Rafe had backed to the wall, faced the wet color of old paper. Our eyes met. He shook his head in tiny, haunted denial. Choices have gravity. His had found him. Rafe, I yelled over the chaos. Get out. He flinched, as if the word burned. But he moved, slipping through a door toward the office like a rat picking a side. The expensive man retreated toward the ring of tinted cars that had been silent witnesses. He snapped, finish it, and the circle surged one last time. The thing about last surges is they're honest. Men show you what they believe. Some came with their eyes hard. Some came with their eyes already broken. I met them with the chain and the part of me that refused to kneel for any god, soft or hard. We ended it the way street fights always end. Messy, winded, alive. Bodies groaned on concrete. Bats rolled to a stop against the wall. The last chain struck the floor and lay quiet, finally understanding its job was over. Silence returned in fragments. My lungs worked like bellows left out in the rain. My knuckles were raw. Somewhere, a phone buzzed itself to death under a boot. The lights hummed like they were praying not to be shot. I looked at Orien. His suit wasn't wrinkled. His breathing hadn't bothered to speed. The glow at his throat dimmed to a memory, but it was still there, a promise under skin. He caught me staring and didn't look away. You're not running, he said, almost to himself. The edge of wonder in his voice made something complicated happen under my ribs. I swallowed copper in panic. Tried that once. Didn't like the view. Most mortals run, he said. They should. It's sensible. Sensible bores me. He smiled like I'd brought him an answer he hadn't expected to enjoy. Good. The expensive man had vanished. Rafe was gone too. Outside, engines barked to life and peeled away into the night. Rats doing what rats do when the cat brings a friend. I let the chain drop, its clatter loud in the aftermath. "So," I said, "we're in the same sinking boat." "We're in a car," he corrected mildly. "We simply haven't chosen which one yet." I laughed, and it sounded like a bruise feels. "You offering me a ride or a leash?" "Neither," he said. "A line. You don't have to take it, but if you don't, they will pull you under." I hate being told what to do. I also hate drowning. I looked at the scattered bats, the smoke peeling from cigar stubs, the place where a bullet had kissed the floor near my boot. The city doesn't forgive. It only delays sentencing. "Fine," I said, meeting his eyes. "We team up. We do it my way. No dead kids for YouTube views, no vans full of bodies dumped at the river, no families buying races with blood. We burn their network and keep the roads." A slow nod. "Agreed." "Swear it," I said before I could stop myself. "On whatever you swear on." The glow at his throat flickered. Surprise, then amusement. "I swear," he said, and the hangar felt it, a pressure wave with no wind. "On speed." We stood there, two men with nothing in common but a direction, and it felt like a deal. Not clean, not safe, real. "Come on," he said at last, tipping his head toward the night. "You need a car." "I need a lot of things," I said, following him anyway. A new garage, a new friend, a new definition of normal. He held the door, courtly and damning. "Start with a car," Orien said. "Everything else follows velocity." The garage was different at night. Not the noisy womb of engines and grease it usually was, but something smaller, tighter. The lamp above the workbench pooled yellow light, soft against the concrete walls. The air carried the scent of oil and steel, sharp, comforting. After the fire, it felt almost like breathing again. I was elbow deep in what was left of a chassis, trying to pretend my hands weren't shaking from exhaustion. The busted frame stared back at me, stubborn and accusing. "Needs more than welding," I muttered. "Needs resurrection," Orien said from the shadows. I jerked, banging my knuckles against the edge. "You ever announce yourself like a normal person?" He stepped into the light, suit abandoned for once. Simple shirt, sleeves rolled. The faint sheen of someone too clean for a garage but trying anyway. Even like this. He carried himself like the air belonged to him. "Normal is relative," he said smoothly, and crouched near the engine. "Your compression ratio is off. 2 valves won't hold under that pressure." I squinted at him. "You planning to haunt my garage now?" "Not haunt. Assist." He reached out, fingers brushing a wrench on the bench. When he handed it to me, his knuckles brushed mine. Cool skin, brief contact, enough to send something hot down my arm. I took it too quickly. Thought demons just watched mortals burn. "Some fires," he said, watching me work, "are worth tending." The silence after that wasn't empty. It was crowded, with tools clinking, metal groaning, and the weight of his gaze. I tightened bolts harder than I needed, as if muscle could keep me from unraveling. "You're staring," I snapped. "I'm observing." "Same thing. You don't like being observed?" "Not by guys who glow in the dark." He chuckled, low and warm. "You noticed?" I risked a glance. His eyes caught the lamplight, faint sparks behind them, like live wires under skin. It wasn't human. It wasn't trying to be. "Yeah," I said. "Hard to miss when your coworker doubles as a neon sign." For a moment, his smirk faltered. "The crowd's roar, their fear, their thrill, that's what feeds me. Their pulse becomes mine, that's my fire." "And now?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Now," he said softly, "there's a different kind of fire. And it doesn't come from them." His eyes stayed on me. I looked away fast, jaw clenched, heart hammering like a misfiring piston. "Enemy," I reminded myself. "Dangerous. Not someone you wanted close enough to know how you breathed." But my pulse refused the memo. We worked like that for hours, me pretending the sparks were only from metal. Him pretending he wasn't watching the way I bit my lip when a bolt stuck. Every brush of fingers, every shoulder bump felt like we were tuning an instrument too delicate for the noise around us. By the time the car coughed its first weak rumble, the night had deepened into that heavy silence before dawn. Sweat ran down my neck, and he sat in the driver's seat like he'd always belonged there. "Moment of truth," I said, sliding into the passenger side. The engine caught, a rough growl smoothing into something alive. The car shook under us, trembling with more than mechanics. We sat in the dark, the dash glow soft against his profile. Neither of us spoke. The silence thickened, pulling taut. My chest rose too fast, my throat dry. I told myself to open the door, to leave, to breathe air that wasn't heavy with him. Instead, I stayed. His hand rested on the shifter, mine close enough to touch. The air between us wasn't air anymore. It was a fuse. I don't know who moved first. Maybe both. One heartbeat we were silent, the next his mouth was on mine, cool at first, then hot, fire to gasoline. My pulse roared, my body betraying me by leaning closer. When we pulled apart, breathless, I laughed. Too sharp, too shaky. Great. Just what I needed. Kissing the guy who tried to kill me with rules. He smirked, but it was softer now, almost human. Correction. The guy who saved you from burning alive. Don't remind me. We sat there, the engine humming beneath us, the night pressing close. My enemy. My partner. My something I didn't have a name for. And for the first time, Orien looked less like the demon who owned the city's shadows, and more like someone on the edge of losing control. The city never slept. But tonight it held its breath. Headlights painted the docks in fractured silver. Engines idled like predators pacing in cages, smoke curling from exhausts into the humid dark. Neon bled across the asphalt, turning oil slicks into ribbons of fire. The crowd pressed against barricades, shouting names, shaking fists, waving bills. Their hunger hung in the air, thick as gasoline. At the center of it all, me, behind the wheel. And across from me, the boss himself, the man whose suit cost more than my car, whose smile promised graves. His ride was sleek, black, armored in places cars shouldn't be. Beside him, bodyguards leaned against hoods with guns under their jackets, smirks carved into their faces. Orien leaned closer, his hand brushing the gear shift, not touching but near enough. His presence filled the car like another engine. Rules? I asked. There are none, he said, voice steady as the road itself. Except survive. The starter raised his hand. For once, no smile. His eyes said what we all knew. This wasn't a race for prize money. This was a culling. The flag dropped. Tires screamed, rubber tearing at asphalt. My car lunged forward, heart in my hands, Orien's calm weight pressing in beside me. The crowd detonated into noise, a single roar chasing us into the night. The first corner was murder. Cars shoved for position, bumpers clashing like blades. Someone clipped my rear fender, sparks showered, hot and brief. I corrected hard, but the car responded smoother than it should have, almost anticipatory. You feel it, Orien said, not asking. Feel what? My voice was ragged with speed. The line before it exists. And he was right. My reflexes weren't mine alone. It was like he sat inside my veins, whispering the curve before it came, sharpening the edges of my instincts until they cut. We hit the first bridge. The city opened below, river black and merciless. Neon smeared across the water like blood on glass. 2 cars boxed me in, steel jaws closing. Left, Orien said. There's no left. I snarled, but my hands moved anyway. I jerked the wheel, tires screaming, car sliding between guardrail and competitor with inches to spare. Wind slammed us. The crowd's gasp carried even here, miles high. I laughed, wild and breathless. You're insane. You're welcome, Orien said. And for once his voice carried heat. The tunnels came next. Yellow lights strobed overhead, shadows slicing across our faces. Sound doubled, engines bouncing back, a mechanical symphony in a steel throat. The mafia boss surged ahead, his car cutting lanes with surgical arrogance. His men followed, turning the tunnel into a gauntlet. Blockers, Orien murmured. I grinned. Let's ruin their night. I dropped gears, slammed the accelerator. The car roared, leaping forward like it wanted blood. I clipped the rear of one blocker, sent him spinning. His headlights pinwheeled across the tunnel walls before he crunched into the divider, flames chewing up his hood. The crowd above screamed approval. The noise swelled, electric, and I felt it shudder through Orien. His eyes glowed faintly in the dashlight, feeding. Another blocker swung wide, trying to sideswipe me. Too late. I braked, he overshot, and I slammed him from behind. Metal shrieked, sparks cascaded. He fishtailed, took 2 others with him. The tunnel filled with wreckage and smoke. We burst into open air, the night swallowing us whole again. The parking garage loomed. A concrete colossus with ramps like coiled snakes. The route cut straight through it, up and across the roof before spitting us back onto the highway. The boss's car was already climbing, taillights like devil eyes. "This is stupid," I muttered, hitting the ramp. "Correct," Orien said. "Now hold steady." We shot upward, concrete flashing inches from my mirror. The car bucked, tires squealing as we spun around the spiral. Sirens wailed in the distance, late to the party. On the roof, chaos bloomed. Cars jostled, skidding on the gravel-strewn concrete. Someone oversteered, smashed through the barrier, and vanished screaming into the dark. The crowd below howled, fear and ecstasy braided into one sound. Orien inhaled like it was oxygen. "Stop feeding off them," I snapped. His smile was quick, dangerous. Too late. Another car blocked the exit ramp. I didn't brake. I gunned it. The impact rattled my bones, glass spiderwebbing, metal folding. My car shoved him aside like a bully clearing a hallway. Orien's hand shot out, braced the dash without effort. "You'll kill us both," he said. "Not yet," I gritted. Back on the highway, only 3 cars remained, me, the boss, and one loyal shadow glued to his flank. The rest were smoking ruins scattered across the city's veins. The boss's car growled ahead, faster, heavier, built for domination. He glanced back once, eyes meeting mine through layers of tinted glass. He smiled. A dare. I pressed harder. My car shook, frame protesting, speedometer needle flirting with red. Orien leaned closer, his voice low in my ear. "Together," he said. Something shifted. My pulse synced with the engine's rhythm. My sight sharpened until the road was a ribbon laid just for me. The car wasn't a machine anymore. It was skin, bone, breath. And Orien was inside all of it, amplifying, guiding, tethering me to something greater than control. We became one. The loyal shadow swerved, aiming to spin me out. My hands reacted before thought, guided by a whisper that wasn't mine. I cut inside, clipped his quarter panel. He lost traction, slammed sideways, metal shrieking. His car rolled, sparks and fire painting the night. Only the boss remained. The route narrowed, a half-finished overpass, open sky yawning on both sides. Concrete barriers ended, leaving nothing but air and the river far below. The boss punched forward, headlights bouncing. "This is it," Orien said. "No kidding," I muttered, jaw tight. The boss jerked left, slamming into me. My car screamed, wheels fighting for grip. Sparks exploded where steel kissed steel. He tried to push me off the edge. "Give," Orien warned. "Never," I spat. I countered, swerving hard. Our cars locked like brawlers trading punches. Every jolt rattled my bones. The crowd's roar became thunder, 1,000 heartbeats feeding the demon beside me. His glow flared bright, reflecting in my windshield. "Now," Orien whispered. I saw it, the gap, the angle, the only way out. I yanked the wheel, floored the gas. My car slammed into his with every ounce of fury left. Metal screamed. His front axle snapped sideways. Momentum dragged him across the asphalt, helpless, before the barrier ended. His car burst through empty air and vanished into the black river below. The impact shook the overpass. Then silence. Then, detonation. Fire bloomed upward, orange and furious, reflected in the water like a second sun. We skidded to a stop, brakes howling, smoke curling from the hood. My chest heaved, lungs clawing for air. The city roared alive. The crowd's scream shook the foundations. Ecstasy, disbelief, worship. They weren't watching a race anymore. They were watching a revolution. Orien sat motionless, glowing faint, eyes on me. Energy radiated from him, fed by the crowd, by me, by the moment. But his smile, small, real, wasn't hunger. "You did it," he said. "No," I corrected, still gasping. "We did." For a second the car's cabin felt infinite. Like speed wasn't distance anymore, but closeness. I met his gaze and felt it, terror, awe, and something sharp-edged and impossible, unity. I wasn't just Jax, driver of machines. I was something faster, something burning, something alive. And for the first time I wasn't driving alone. The flames still licked the sky when I killed the engine. The night smelled of smoke and victory. My hands trembled on the wheel, not from fear but release. The crowd chanted my name, our name, and for the first time, it felt like more than survival. It felt like winning. The hangar smelled of smoke and endings. Half the roof had collapsed during the fight. Steel beams twisted into black ribs against the paling sky. Ash coated the floor like snow, muffling the crunch of our boots as we stepped through. Broken chains gleamed among the debris, teeth with no bite left. The mafia's men had fled into the dark hours ago, engines screaming their retreat, and no one chased them. The city would deal with them, one way or another. What mattered was what hadn't burned. I ran my hand along a charred pillar, grit sticking to my palm. The adrenaline was gone now, leaving something heavier. Not regret, not grief. Just space. Like after a storm, when the air feels too wide. "They're finished," I said, voice rough. "Yes," Orien replied. He moved through the wreckage like it was a cathedral, calm, reverent. The faint glow under his skin had dimmed to something almost human. Almost. The horizon cracked open, bleeding orange over the river. Dawn made the city look softer, as if even steel could be forgiven in that light. We stopped in what used to be the center of the hangar. The square of concrete where deals were made, where fights began, where I nearly lost everything. "I'm tired of blood," I said. The words escaped before I could hide them. He turned to me. For once, no smile, no teasing mask. Just eyes that carried every finish line, every death he'd witnessed. "And I realized," he said, "that pure adrenaline tastes better." It hung between us, simple and impossible. I barked a laugh because if I didn't laugh, I might admit how much I wanted to believe him. "So what then? We run races for the thrill, not the funerals?" "Exactly," Orien said. His gaze slid past me to the city stretching beyond the docks. "The roads belong to us now. But they will only stay ours if we remake them." I shook my head, grinning despite myself. A demon talking like a reformer. "What's next? Safety regulations?" He chuckled low, the sound reverberating in my chest. "Don't push it." We walked out together, into streets washed clean by dawn. The crowd had dispersed, leaving silence where hours ago there'd been a hurricane of voices. Empty soda cans rattled in the gutter. Tire marks scarred the asphalt, proof of what had been won. My car waited near the curb, dented and scorched but alive. Like me. I leaned against the hood, stretching sore shoulders. "So, new races," I said. "Our rules, no mobs, no blood money. Just the road, the risk, the rush. And freedom," Orien added. He leaned close, too close, his voice brushing the edges of my thoughts. "You don't realize how rare that is." I met his gaze. For once, I didn't look away. "Then let's build it." Something in his expression shifted. Less demon, more man, but dangerous in a different way. For the first time since I'd met him, I thought maybe he was choosing me just as much as I was choosing him. We slid into the car. The leather seat groaned, familiar, grounding. I gripped the wheel, felt its shape under my palms. Orien sat beside me, perfectly at ease, as if he'd always belonged there. The city stretched ahead, roads unspooling into possibilities. I started the engine. It growled awake, eager. The silence held for one last beat, heavy with everything unsaid. Then I exhaled, a laugh tangled in the breath. He's a demon of speed, I thought, feeling the truth settle like fire in my chest. And I'm the one who slams the gas. Together, I dropped the clutch, tires shrieking, the car leaping forward into the rising sun. We're unstoppable.